November 3rd, 2022 marks the 30th anniversary of Colorado's Taxpayer Bill of Rights, many times known by its acronym of TABOR. As one of the best known pieces of ALEC model policy, TABOR has provided a gold standard for state tax and expenditure limits, or TELs, returning billions of dollars to hardworking Colorado taxpayers over the past 30 years. Despite the unrelenting political attacks from the tax and spend opponents of TABOR, as well as appalling judicial activism from Colorado courts, TABOR has withstood the test of time and continues to provide important protection for hardworking Colorado taxpayers. What's TABOR all about? Well, let's start with the basics. TABOR is a state constitutional amendment that was approved by Colorado voters in 1992. It limits the amount of revenue the state of Colorado lawmakers can retain and spend to a reasonable formula of population plus inflation growth. If the state government collects more tax dollars than TABOR allows, the money is automatically returned to taxpayers as a TABOR refund. If any public agency in Colorado intends to spend surplus revenue, increase taxes or fees, or increase debt, it must place the proposed measure on the ballot and get approval from voters. The ballot measures must clarify how the funds will be raised and allocated. It is the nexus between the expenditure for a government program and the required transparency as taxpayers consider approving the measure, and this explains a large part of the success of TABOR over these 30 years. For decades, academic researchers have promoted the benefits of having an institutional constraint on the growth of government like TABOR. Taxes can still be increased, but it takes a vote of the people to do so. Following the low tax plus limited government formula, Colorado developed into one of the nation's most competitive business climates in the years following TABOR's adoption. Between years 1997 and 2007 alone, Colorado taxpayers received $6.7 billion in TABOR-provided tax relief. The economic growth followed, as Colorado boasted one of the most competitive and fastest-growing economies in the nation during those years. At the time of its approval, then-Governor Roy Romer condemned TABOR, claiming it would cause businesses to flee the state and the economy to collapse. Well, some things never change. Every year, progressives launch similar attacks against TABOR, and in some years, they've introduced ballot measures to rescind or water down TABOR. This year, the left-wing Denver Post is going after TABOR again, urging legislators to, quote, scrap the antiquated TABOR refund mechanism and find a more equitable way to treat Colorado taxpayers, unquote. However, it is likely because of the protection of TABOR that businesses haven't fled Colorado at the same rate that we see in tax and spend states all across the country, like California, Illinois, and New York. The progressive attacks are simply an acknowledgement of the danger that TABOR presents to those that would like an unconstrained ability to grow government. In fact, many states face the same threat by simply not having any sort of tax and expenditure limitation. Though all states but Bernie Sanders' Vermont have some sort of a balanced budget requirement, not all states have a protection like TABOR. In fact, the vast majority do not. Taxing and spending may not be out of control now in Colorado, but it only takes one future generation of budget crafters to change that. For Colorado, that generation has been held bay by the resiliency of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. This year alone, the Colorado General Assembly announced a taxpayer rebate of $3.6 billion in surplus revenue that will go to hardworking taxpayers as they battle back record-breaking inflation. Even in the face of this tremendous economic success story, progressives have spent tremendous resources trying to demonize TABOR in Colorado. Fully documenting the disingenuous attacks against TABOR could take years. Why are the so-called progressives so scared of TABOR? It's simply because constitutional spending limitation in the model of TABOR restricts the wild spending increases which fund their constituency, which is, of course, big government. And while these politically motivated attacks on TABOR will undoubtedly continue, the bottom line is that TABOR remains the gold standard for states looking to provide a meaningful way to protect their hardworking taxpayers from out-of-control taxes and spending. To see how a tax and expenditure limitation could benefit your state, visit our new website at fiscalrules.org. For American Radio Journal, I'm Jonathan Williams. Thanks for listening.